I'm going to call the Election Commission to order. A roll call, Amanda?
Joyce Anderson,
Here.
Bonnie Lynn Babb,
Here.
Jim Stevens,
Present.
Barbara Wallace.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Old business, we have none from our previous meetings, and our new business is a review of question and absentee no count ballots. Before I get into that, I wanted to give a quick overview of what the Election Commission does. So the Election Commission has been here for the last couple of weeks, and we have been reviewing all of the question ballots from the precinct, as well as the in-person voting at City Hall and the other places, and as well as those mail-in ballots that have come in that were requested. So what we've done is we've looked at them to make sure that they are filled out properly. They have a signature and a witness, and that they're registered, and they're registered in the municipality and not someplace else. So we've been doing that diligently for the last couple of weeks, and what you have before you are all of the ones that have been rejected by the Election Commission for various reasons. And Amanda will be going through, and you should all have a copy of the one sheet. We have some additional ones that are sort of unique, but so I will turn it over to Amanda, and she can go through the totals and explain why they were rejected. If you have any questions, either Amanda or commissioners can certainly answer them for you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first ballots that are before the Election Commission for potential no count is 2 envelopes that were received that are empty. So one of them is a special needs envelope, and one is a ballot requested by mail, and we just got back an empty envelope. So these are before the Commission for rejection, as there is no ballot in there to actually count.
I so move that we reject them.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
The second set that we have is 5 voters that have voted twice. And we have voters who voted absentee in person. 4 of these have voted absentee in person and have voted twice. And the 5th one is a voter who voted absentee by mail, and then second voted a special needs ballot. So we have these available if the Commission would like to look at them again to review the signatures. Or
Do any commissioners want to review those again?
I don't know.
No.
But I would like to make a comment that when there is a double vote, the earliest one or the full one is counted. It was the second. We are rejecting the second vote. So everyone has had an opportunity to vote.
Can we look at them?
yes. And there is a 6th potential overvote that we will discuss later in the meeting.
So Bonnie Lynn is correct in that what the staff that Amanda has that works on the absentee and by mail, or in person and by mail, takes a look and finds out that if they voted in the precinct, we're not going to count the one that came either by mail or in person, and vice versa. And so we have caught these, and there's only 1 vote that's counted for each voter instead of having the voter receive 2 votes because they filled out paperwork twice or showed up at the polls.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
I move that we reject those 5 ballots.
And I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
The next set of ballots that are before the Commission are voters who have a felony conviction, and we have 2 voters who voted, and they are marked in the voter registration database that they are ineligible to vote due to a felony conviction.
I so move we reject them.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries.
The next set of ballots before the Commission is felony discharge. These voters had a felony conviction, and they are now in the status to regain their voting rights. This vote that they cast will now bring them back into active status But according to the State of Alaska Division of Election, this one is not set to be counted because they did not take steps to become eligible at this point. But this will move them into active status. And there are 3 ballots.
So just to recap, there were 5 total that had to do with felony issues. We had these 3 and the previous 2. Is there a motion to approve to reject these?
I move that we reject these 3 ballots.
I second it.
Any discussion?
Yeah, they just didn't have, they weren't registered in time, or they weren't qualified to register in time. So they do it in order to vote in the next election. So I think it's,
These voters could have taken the action to send in the required paperwork. They did receive a letter from the Division of Elections, and they didn't follow through on that step. But these votes will now bring them into, because we will send this information to the Division of Elections, and they'll update their voter registration.
Okay, any further discussion? Not all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, we are moving on to the voters in the MOA category. These voters are registered within the state of Alaska, but not in the municipality of Anchorage. And we have 94 voters that fall into this category for this election. This is higher than we've seen in recent years for voters. We did see a higher number of voters voting outside the municipality in one particular precinct. So that is part of the reason we have a higher number of these voters this election.
And I think you had mentioned earlier when we were working on this, going through this process, that it could be because of the caucuses as well. People registered that.
Not specifically these ones. Well, those are more under the T,
Okay.
which we'll
All
talk
right.
about in
Okay.
too.
Okay, do we have a motion to reject the 94 that were registered elsewhere other than the municipality of Anchorage?
I so move.
Second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Just for clarification, these people have moved into Anchorage. They've been state registered voters in Bethel or Dillingham, Nilchik. They are now here. They wanted to vote, but they're ineligible for this municipal election. But this will get them on record, so next time around they will be eligible.
They'll be able to vote in November.
Or our primary?
That's right.
Okay,
Or a municipal special election.
if we have one.
Can I just ask a question? You said 94 is larger than normal. What's normal?
We usually see about 60 of these. This is always one of our higher counts that we've seen. So I'm speaking anecdotally from my
maybe
experience since 2010. But it is a much higher number than we've seen in recent years.
Thank you.
Save 2012, which was an outlier.
Any further discussion? We have a motion on the floor, correct, Amanda?
Yep, we have a
Couldn't
motion
remember.
by Bonnie Lynn and a second by
Okay.
Barbara.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next, we have 2 voters who did not meet the requirements, that they were not 18 by election day. One of them had a birthday the following day, and the other one was also really close. The exciting thing about these voters is they are now registered to vote after this paperwork is sent to the State Division of Elections, but they did not meet the requirements for this election. But upcoming elections, they'll be qualified. So
Very
2
encouraging.
Yes.
Once you start voting, you become a lifelong voter, is what I've always learned. Okay, do we have a motion to reject these 2?
I so move.
Second.
I'll
I
second
thought
it.
you said.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries.
The next set of ballots that we have are voters that registered too late. They registered inside the 30-day before Election Day. This is a larger number than we've seen in recent years, and I can say that when we reviewed these voters, most of them had updated their voter registration after the Democratic caucus, which was March 28th, I believe, and so that was a significant number out of these voters. They are now qualified to vote in future Anchorage elections, but they missed the 30-day window for this election.
I so move that they be accepted as rejected.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Amanda?
The next set of ballots that we have are ballots that were received after the 8 p.m. deadline, and we had 5 voters who voted on election day at a polling location. They arrived after the polls closed, and we had 3 separate ones that were ballots requested by electronic transmission or fax that were received after the 8 p.m. deadline. So there's 8 total of ballots that were received after 8 p.m.
Is there a motion to approve the 8 ballots
I so
for
moved.
rejection? So moved. A second?
Second.
On that,
Discussion?
discussion. Now, on those facsimile or the emails, it was clearly on there that the time on that was the time they were sent, not the time they were received in City Hall. I forgot to ask that earlier.
That's a great question. So we have the email that says that it was received too late, and additionally we followed up with the voters, and if they were able to send something that shows on their end that it was sent before 8, we would have accepted it, but they were unable to produce that. Some of them were received significantly after 8, like 11 o'clock at night.
And I would say 99.9% of the time, the date that the email is received, if it's an email, is pretty accurate unless there's a glitch or something, but, so the time was on that. Okay, we have a motion on the floor to reject the 8 ballots that were received after 8 o'clock. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 The next group that we have is voters who requested an absentee ballot by mail, and it was received after Election Day, and it was postmarked after Election Day. So it's clearly postmarked starting April 6th and on. And we have 27 ballots in this category.
Is there a motion to approve the 27 ballots that were postmarked after Election Day?
I shall move.
Second.
I second.
Okay, discussion. I would like to say that the Election Commission looked at the dates on the envelopes of all these particular ballots, and they definitely were postmarked by the post office. I know in the past there have been some that haven't had postmarks on them, but all of these did have postmarks on them, and they all were postmarked after the election.
Question down here.
Question, Barbara?
Madam Chair, I'd just like to clarify that the motion on the floor is a motion to approve the rejection of these 27 ballots.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. Any further discussion? Yes?
One question from my side. How does the Department of Elections make sure that absentee ballots are sent in a timely way so they're received in time to be posted by the election day?
Well, I think Amanda can answer that because there is a cutoff limit as to when they can be sent out. And Amanda, I don't know what that is off the top
Yeah,
of my head.
we by code stop accepting applications 7 days before the election day. So everything that was mailed out with 7 days lead time to return it. We did have voters who were unable to return it, and we did accept them sending them back by fax, or voters brought them into polling locations. We had a significant number of ballots that were returned with the polling supplies. So there's a variety of ways that voters are able to get those back in order to make sure that they are coming back, and they just need to be hand canceled by election day.
I'm just aware of at least one anecdotal story of one that was not received until 3 days after the election, I believe.
And we've gotten a significant number of phone calls from voters who did not receive their ballot, and we worked with those voters to send them a ballot by fax or a ballot by email. And that is something that I'm looking at. Nina is our team lead for our by mail board, and that is something we've worked really hard with the voters to make sure that we are getting them the ballot when they need
Becomes a
it.
more significant issue next year.
Barbara?
I would like Amanda and Nina to explain the application that people fill out and submit. It tells them when the deadline is, and if they don't get their ballot by a certain day, they are to contact you. Could you please explain that in more detail?
We have clear directions on the application for voters if they don't receive the ballot to contact our office. And starting a couple days before Election Day, we start getting a significant number of phone calls. And at that point, we just work to identify the best way for that voter to receive the ballot, whether it be by email or fax, or if it would be more convenient for the voter to take advantage of the early voting that's happening and to use those other opportunities to vote.
May I also say something? Another thing we do is on their application, the voter says where they would like the ballot sent to, and it could be out of state, it could be out of country. A lot of times a voter has requested this early, but something happens, they're out of town, or their mailbox gets destroyed by a snowplow or something. Those envelopes come back to us because the post office doesn't forward this type of mail. And when it comes back, we contact the voter immediately, tell them what's happened, and then tell them, you know, if there's time, we'll send them a new one or give them an alternative way to vote.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the ones that were postmarked after Election Day? Hearing none, is everyone, say aye if you are in favor of the motion of rejecting these 27 ballots.
Aye.
Aye.
Next, we have our X category. These are voters that are not registered at all. So not only are they not registered within the municipality of Anchorage, they're not registered within the entire state of Alaska. There is a small typo on my sheet. I apologize about that. So these ones are just voters who are not registered within the state of Alaska, and we have 75 ballots, mostly question ballots from the polls on Election Day.
I think that the reason we have that is there are a lot of people that have moved into Alaska and they haven't registered. They somehow think they've registered somewhere else so I can vote in this country.
I think just for public's knowledge, every ballot that is set for rejection has been verified 3 different times by 3 different set of workers to really confirm that these voters are not qualified. And it was exciting as we went through this process because we were able to find voters in the voter registration database that the first or second group wasn't able to find. So we were able to pull some voters out, but we, after 3 reviews, were not able to find any of these 75 voters.
Madam Chair, I would like to move that we reject these 75 ballot envelopes and ballots that came in who are not registered within the municipality of Anchorage.
A second?
I so move.
Okay, discussion. I do have a question for you, Amanda.
Yes.
You had said there was a typo. These are show that the voters are not registered within the state or the municipality. No?
Yeah, just not registered.
Period.
Period.
So they're not registered within the state.
Yes.
That's exactly right, because we've already done the ones that were, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, so we will change that on the report to say, if I can have someone make an amendment. Jim, if you want to make an amendment to your motion?
Yes, I will make the amendment that states that these 75 ballots that we received were not registered within the time frame within the state of Alaska.
Thank you. Is there a second to the amendment?
I'll second that.
Second to the amendment. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Our next set is envelopes that voters who requested to vote by mail, and the envelope was returned with the signature not witnessed. This is something that has happened in recent years, and we have worked really hard to assist voters in making sure that they follow this simple step. And one thing that our by mail board has done is they've gone through and highlighted the envelopes on the steps that the voters must follow, and we still have 43 voters who did not have their signature witnessed.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the rejection of these 43 ballots due to improper or insufficient witness?
I so move.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion.
My
Jim?
only question is not regarding these so much, but looking to the future when we go to by mail completely. Is that going to be a factor for the future that people have to have a signature or a witness, both?
Great question. So we are still in discussion about how vote by mail will specifically look in Anchorage, but exploring how other jurisdictions outside of Alaska handle vote by mail. Specifically Colorado, Washington, and Oregon, the 3 states that are vote by mail, they do not require the signature to be witnessed. They do require a signature on the ballot envelope, but there is not the requirement for that signature to be witnessed unless if the voter is unable to sign and they make a mark, then that must be witnessed. And so I think that is something that vote by mail jurisdictions recognize. Having a witness can potentially be barrier to participation or cause challenges for some voters. So what we are exploring, but as I mentioned, no final decisions have been made yet as to how it will specifically look in Anchorage. We're not currently exploring the witness.
Any additional discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Motion carries.
The last in the main stack is sort of the hat trick of not having items that are needed for a vote by mail ballot count. These ones were not witnessed, not signed, and no identifier was provided. So they failed to follow any of the directions on the back. There's 3 of these that all have the reject code YGZ.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the rejection of these particular ballots that were missing 3 different types of requirements on the back of the envelope?
I so move.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. We are now
Amanda, before you go any further, I'd like to go on the record to say that, just so we have it on the record, that there are a total of 312 ballots that are listed on this particular sheet that were rejected for particular reasons. And if you could just comment, I know you talked earlier about a higher number in particular areas, but what is this number in relation to your experience from previous years?
Thank you. Through the chair, we, in the past few years, we typically have seen about 200 rejected ballots. We did notice this year as we were reviewing the voter qualifications that there was a high number of voters who were voting in a particular precinct. That precinct actually requested extra question ballots on election day. And there was one specific item that was on that ballot not available at any other ballot in town, and voters specifically wrote on these envelopes that they registered outside the municipality of Anchorage, but they want to vote on this particular proposition. So we did see a higher number from that. And then also the voters that were registered too late was a significant number and higher than in years past, and I think that is partly due to timing of one of the presidential caucuses held here in the state of Alaska. I think one of the other things that we can look hopefully at is, for example, these 75 voters who weren't registered previously, they are now all registered within the state of Alaska. And the 94 voters that were registered elsewhere in the state of Alaska are now registered within the municipality of Anchorage. So although it is a painful process to go through and not count these votes, it does move these voters into registered qualified voting status.
Okay, thank you. All right. Now we're going to move into, Amanda's going to move into those that have sort of individual circumstances, and we're going to go through them one by one. And I believe what we should do, unless there's a grouping, we should make a motion for each individual one because they're so specific.
So we will start with one precinct. We received 2 ballots that were sent by mail, and the voters brought them in. They did not bring in their envelope, they did not sign their envelope, they did not witness their envelope. We have no way of tracking which voters these were. And so it is before the commission to determine if these are qualified, but without the witness or the signature or specifically knowing which voter these were.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the rejection of these 2 particular ballots?
I would so move.
Second?
Second?
Okay, discussion. Commissioner? Okay, basically what Amanda said is that because the 2 ballots were dropped off and we don't know who they're from, We don't know if the person that voted them is a qualified registered voter. We don't know, if they requested one ahead of time or anything like that.
We don't know if they went and voted
On
at the
election day,
library
exactly.
or
So just sort of mentioning some of the parameters there. Okay, any discussion from committee members?
We don't even know how they got the ballot. to begin
Exactly,
with.
exactly.
How'd they get it? Where'd they get it? We
Exactly.
don't know anything.
Okay, no further discussion. Everyone in favor of the motion for rejecting these two ballots, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. I am going to group the next two together. We had two voters who requested who were brought a special needs ballot. Special needs voters are voters who are unable to make it to the polls on election day, and they have a representative bring them a ballot. The representative is required to sign step 1 when they pick up the ballot from the polling location, and that same representative is required to witness the voter's signature. This is something that we discussed in our training classes. Every single training class, I said the same sentence over and over again. The same representative who picks up the ballot must be the same representative that witnesses the signature. So we have two cases, and I will pass these down if anyone would like to additionally.
Could you just quickly explain what a special needs ballot is for everybody?
Special needs ballot is for a voter who's unable to make it to the polls on election day. So they've sent a representative into a polling location. It can be any polling location. We have at the absentee early voting sites have them available for 2 weeks before election day. These ones were both specifically polling locations on election day that issued these ballots.
And just for the record, since we are on record, we are passing those ballots through the commission members to take a look at them before we should have a motion actually on the floor first. So if there's a motion on the floor to reject these two special needs ballots due to the representative's signature not matching,
I will move that we reject these ballots.
a second.
I'll second.
Second? Okay, now we're into discussion.
I would like to ask, who can be a voter's representative?
There's a long list of people who can't be the representative, including an employer, a union, a campaign worker, but then beyond that, it could be a family member, friend, neighbor. We have our by mail board act as representatives for voters who are in the hospital on election day. They actually provide them that service to
Great.
patients.
Good. So it doesn't have to be an employee of the city or?
Nope.
Okay, thanks.
It's all right if a parent.
Yep, a parent, a son, a daughter, cousin, niece, nephew, uncle, aunt,
Yeah,
cousin.
it's hard for me. I taught for so many years, and when I had children that really had difficulty learning, sometimes it was semi-genetic. The parents had they would complain that they'd been in special ed, and to raise a child with so many problems is hard, and I can see them following up.
Okay, basically what I want to point out for the record is that for both of these, the last name is the same as the voter and the representative, so we can look at that. We do have the signature of the representative when they picked up the material, when they came in and picked up the material. So we do have that signature, and then there is a signature on the other part of this particular ballot after it's been voted that the representative is similar to the witness that's on the witness on the back of an absentee as a mail-in ballot. It came from a state that uses different terms than we do, so sometimes I don't use your terms. So we had, let's see, how many did we reject for witness, which was insufficient. So there were 43 that we rejected due to insufficient or improper witness. So I'm just saying this is the same as the ones that come in by mail. So I'm going to pass them to the rest of the commissioners to look at.
Call for the question.
Okay, we've had a call for the question. All those in favor, let's do this individually. Bonnie Lynn, favor of rejection. We have a motion on the floor to reject these two ballots.
I'm in favor.
I'm sorry?
I'm not in favor.
So you're voting no.
No.
Barbara?
I'm in favor of rejecting.
So you're voting yes. Jim?
Yes.
And myself, yes. The vote is 3-1. The ballots are rejected.
Okay. The next ballot before the commission is also another special needs ballot. And this one, the representative failed to witness the signature of the voter.
Is there a motion on the floor to reject this particular special needs ballot that had no representative signature?
I'll move that we reject this particular ballot, special needs, because it has no
Representative.
representatives witness.
Second? Is there a second to the motion? I second it. Can I second it as chair?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, and again, the representative signature is similar to the witness's signature on the back of a by-mail ballot. Okay, is there any discussion about this particular special needs?
I just would like to have Amanda say one more time about it. It's very clear in the directions that should have been something done. I guess I feel a little off about it because I almost wish that the election worker had caught it, because it seems like it's like the voter did everything he was supposed to. It was someone else's failure.
We spent a lot of time in training discussing special needs voting. It is something that is not very common at our precincts, but it's something that I recognize is a challenging process that our workers must follow, and so we do spend a significant amount of time discussing how to handle these ballots. Additionally, it is detailed in the election workers manual. There is 2 pages specifically for special needs voting, and we did discuss in every single training class that the signature must be witnessed, and it must be witnessed by the representative who picked up the ballot and who signed in step 1 must be the same signature in step 2.
Okay, I have a question, but do the parents come and get it? I know when I've worked in the,
It could be anybody who can pick it up. So,
so they wouldn't go through the training, only the workers themselves.
The workers go through the training.
Right. Okay.
Joyce.
And-
whoever has her.
Barbara?
I understand Bonnie's concern about the representative not getting training, but on the oath of office, oath that the representative signs, it has instructions for the representative, and it tells the representative, step 1, sign here, step 2, sign here. I understand it's unfortunate, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that you know that there are some instructions on the
Right.
envelope.
Yeah.
Are
And they're
those
there too.
given verbally when the person picks it up and takes it?
There's
Are
no
they
way to
supposed
gauge
to?
what is happening.
But is that the instruction that they should be
Yes,
verbally
yes.
explained what exactly they need to do?
And they're listed
Okay.
clearly on the
Okay.
ballot.
And Amanda, did I miss this, or did you say that the code requires that they be signed similar to a mail-in ballot
The
And I-
code does require the signature to be witnessed.
on a special needs? I
Yes,
think we
because
looked that up
this
earlier.
ballot has left the polling location, and in order to ensure the chain of custody of this ballot, we require the representative to sign here and the representative to sign as the witness. And it has clear instructions right underneath the first signature. It details in 4 steps what this representative should do. Step 1, complete step 1 before receiving ballot. Deliver this envelope and ballot to voter. Voter and representative, complete step 2 before voting. After voter votes, seal ballot inside envelope and return completed envelope to election official. So it says to complete step 2, and it's in bold letters, representative signature in step 2.
And I think the important part to keep in mind too is that the representative is verifying that that is the person that completed the ballot. And without that signature, we don't know who completed that ballot. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion on the floor to reject this special needs ballot that has no representative signature. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Okay.
Opposed? sounded like I heard everybody. Okay, I say opposed on that one. Motion carries.
The next ballot before the Election Commission is an additional special needs ballot. This one, the voter signature is done by power of attorney, and this is something that is prohibited by code to use power of attorney for a voter signature. A voter is required to just make a mark. It doesn't actually have to be a signature. It could just be an X or a line. And Barbara has additional information on this.
The other issue is that a copy of the general power of attorney or the special power of attorney must have been provided, and it wasn't provided. I think that's as important as the signature, that we don't know that person has that power of attorney.
And wasn't the other issue as well is that the power of attorney cannot vote the ballot for the individual. The individual has to vote the ballot, and then the power of attorney can sign after they put an X. Is that?
That would be a separate issue. It says that unless authorized by federal, state, or local law, no power of attorney can be used to vote a ballot.
Okay.
But then you'd go to our special needs rules, and then you would look at the special needs rules about voting a special needs ballot.
Okay. Do you two want to look at that again? Did we have a motion on the floor?
I don't think so.
No, we need a motion to, we should have done that. We need a motion to reject the special needs ballot that was signed by a POA.
I so move.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next, we have 2 absentee by mail ballots, and they were returned from voters who did not request an absentee by mail ballot. So we had sent absentee ballots to other voters, and these voters crossed off that voter's name and put their name and signed for it. In order to vote absentee by mail, you must request a ballot, you must fill out an application, and this is how we can verify on our end that you are a qualified registered voter. We actually specifically track by these return labels the ballots when they come in. That's how we know who's voted and who hasn't voted, and so these voters crossing them off and removing them, we have no application from these voters. So I'll pass those down.
Is there a motion to reject these 2 ballots that were not?
Chair, I will move that we reject these 2 erroneous voters.
And I would second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Okay. We now have three absentee in-person ballots that do not contain a residence address on them. They have a mailbox address on it. We do require voters to put down their residence address where they claim residency, and this is important so that we can determine that they do live within the municipality of Anchorage and that they are qualified to vote on a specific ballot. And you cannot live in a box. So we have 3 P.O. box address.
Well,
And one was a business address.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one of the problems.
2 mailboxes, excuse me. Can we have a motion first before discussion? Is there a motion to reject these 3 that
I would so move.
Barbara?
I second it.
Second. Okay, go ahead, Bonnie then.
Since we had assembly seats this time, it was very important that people voted for their assembly representative. And when they send in a business address, it is not necessarily the same, but we don't know. And we've tried it from every angle. We looked at their driver's license, we looked at their social security, their birth date, and we could not come up with where they legally lived.
And by
So I
that,
would
Bonnie
reject
Lynn,
it.
and you're saying we went on the state system and we can key in this information to pull up the voter, and that's what we did.
Yes.
You know, the driver's license number, social security number, these are confidential pieces of information, but, you know, we can pull them up and look, and we did not find them listed. Okay, is there any further discussion about this? All those in favor of rejecting these three, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay,
Everyone
moving right along.
carries.
We have a voter whose address we are unable to determine. We have tried every different combination of it. It does not appear to be a valid address within the municipality of Anchorage.
I so move we reject it. We spent too much time on it already.
Second?
Second.
Barbara, second, okay. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, motion carries.
Okay, next we have a voter who voted absentee in person and they failed to provide an address at all. They did provide a P.O. box under their mailing address, but there's no, and that is it's in Seward, it's not even in the municipality of Anchorage, but there is no residence address where we can determine if they are a qualified Anchorage voter.
Did you want to see that at all? Okay, we have a motion to reject the one ballot that has no address listed, or ballot envelope that has no address on it. Motion?
I'm so moved.
Second.
Second it.
Okay. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, it passes.
Okay, we're getting down to the end. I think we didn't discuss this one earlier. So we have a voter who voted absentee in person at the library and absentee in person at City Hall. The signatures do not match between the two different envelopes, but all of the other information, including the identifiers, is the same, including the voter number, the birth date, and the last four of Social Security.
Is there a motion on the floor to reject this particular ballot because the person had already voted?
I move that we reject this particular ballot that is undetermined how many times they voted.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Key? Any discussion? The only thing I'd like to put on the record is that it's very comforting that the election office is keeping track of all these so that individuals don't vote twice when we have paperwork that can back that up.
And I'd also like to add that the voter by mail, whenever we come across one, that a envelope has been sent out for voting by mail, and we get back a ballot, we are aware of that, so that we double check it. For those people who have poor memories.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Saving the best for last, we had a voter who voted absentee in person at the Lusac Library, and it was later identified that potentially this voter was voting twice because when the election by mail board went to record this vote, there was a signature in the precinct register, but upon review of the signature in the precinct register, it looks that potentially the voter and the spot below it signed in the wrong spot. So the voter's name of this absentee ballot starts with a J, and it's clear from the signature that the voter signing it starts with an S, and the voter directly below its name starts with an S, and it does not match the signature on this envelope at all. But I will pass this down for the Commission's review if this should be a potential count.
Madam Chair, I move that we count this particular ballot from this envelope was received with the confusing register signature.
I second.
Okay. Any discussion?
So what, it doesn't look like the same signature though.
That's why the motion was to count it. Because it looks as though this one is the voter from here.
Oh, okay.
So the motion is to count it.
I've been here too long today.
I think because it was, I think one of them got pulled out here at the end when we went through.
Oh, yeah, you can definitely see that. Okay. Did we have a motion on the floor? I can't remember.
Yes.
Yes.
We did.
I
Okay.
made the motion.
Okay.
And Barb seconded it.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I think I'd just like to say that it's obvious that the person did not sign the register because someone else had signed in their place.
True.
But they were a verified voter.
So this one, the absentee in person one, was voted at the Lusac Library on Election Day, and the by mail board went to record the signature after Election Day. And when they went to record the signature, they noticed that somebody had signed in that spot on Election Day at the polling location, but the signatures don't match, and it appears that the voter signed in the wrong spot from
Right.
below.
But the absentee in person,
The signature.
yeah, the voter themselves were verified
Yes.
as a good voter, but it's just that someone had signed in their spot.
This voter who signed in the spot provided a voter card, so it's marked off by the election worker that the identification they provided was a voter card.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of accepting, this is one we are accepting this ballot, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried.
Is it the 5 at the beginning and then just that one and then?
Got it. Okay. Okay, that is all of the ones that the commission has to review?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're now into member comments. Do the members have any comments that they'd like to share with those present?
Just for the record, I'd like to say it's been a privilege to be on the commission for the period of time. This is my last year, so thanks for the opportunity.
Anything else, any commissioners? And I think we're all in agreement. I know I've talked to the other commissioners, we're all in agreement, and I know it was said earlier a couple times that the clerk's office, and particularly Amanda, did a wonderful job for the election, and everything went smoothly. Questions were answered, I don't want to say problems, concerns or whatever were answered as well,
Were
and addressed, thank you, that's a good word, and so we want to thank Barbara and especially Amanda and Nina and all the other staff. If you could pass that along to them, that would be great.
It'd be my honor, and I'd just like to take a moment to recognize Nina and her crew did all of the initial review of all the ballots, and they have a fantastic system upstairs, so we're really thankful.
I was going to comment too. I think that the new tracking system worked excellently.
Very much so,
Mhm.
very much. Very easy to follow, very easy to keep track of.
I'd like to comment on the administration of organizing and picking up new systems so things work better. It's been an incredible march of progress.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is public comment. Is there any comment from the public? Yes?
I have one comment and two questions, so I'll start with the comment first of all.
Okay.
As a civilian,
Could you state who you are?
Sorry, my name is Mike Edrington. I'm a resident of Girdwood.
Okay.
As a civilian, I'm actually very impressed with the diligence I've seen this evening. I took an interest because there's a close vote in my community, but it gave me the opportunity to see the inner workings of the system. I'm really impressed, so I'd like to say thank you to everyone involved.
Thank you.
My specific questions, one is rather inane. How many total ballots were there in the special consideration set that were rejected? I
This-
lost track somewhere. Yes, in that box. I know one was accepted.
I had 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
14.
Yeah, I'm sorry to ask people to count again.
That's what I had, 14.
14, thank you.
Yes.
My second question was about, I think, under voter qualifications, when I was reading the municipal code. There are two sections there. I've got the number 2810, sorry, 283010. There's a section A and section B. My understanding is when people move around within the municipality, they can, even if they've moved within the last 30 days, they can still vote on all the municipal-wide things. If they've moved within the last 30 days, they can't necessarily vote on anything which is specific to a precinct or a set of precincts within the municipality.
Correct.
If it's rejected for the latter reason, which category is it counted under? Do I miss? Sorry.
It's an area-wide. You need to explain area-wide.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one thing that the commission and our election officials have done is to ensure that every vote counts and every vote that is qualified to count counts. So when voters move within the municipality of Anchorage, we determine first if they've moved within their district, and if they've moved within their district, they're still qualified to vote as a full count. So right behind you is a map, and that's our ballots for this election cycle. But you can see, for example, West Anchorage, it's all purple, and it's all the same ballot style. So if someone were to move from Jewel Lake to Sand Lake, they're still within that district, and they are qualified for the full count. And so that is one thing that our election commission and our election officials are working diligently on, is tracking when voters have moved. If they've moved within their district, then they are still qualified to vote for everything. If they've moved from East Anchorage to West Anchorage, then they are only qualified to vote for the area-wide. And we actually spent yesterday facsimiling those ballots onto the ballots that they're qualified to vote for. So we facsimiled about 800 ballots of voters who had moved within the municipality of Anchorage, but had moved outside of district.
So just my understanding, when they've moved from District A to District B, if you like, they're not qualified to vote on anything which is either A or B specific,
Yeah.
only the municipal one.
So they are qualified to vote on the school board members and the 8
Propositions.
propositions.
Thank you.
Would this be a good time to mention too that in Girdwood particularly, we had ballots that were voted by people who were actually registered in other communities, and they would make notes that said that they lived half-time in Girdwood. But that doesn't count. You have to vote where you're registered.
Yeah.
We had a-
you can probably guess
But
that's
there
my
was,
motivation.
well,
for the question.
well, it was interesting because it was obviously something that a lot of people were concerned about.
Yes.
That they actually made the notes on the ballots for that
Ballot
particular
envelopes.
thing.
Yes.
The ballot
Envelope,
envelopes.
not the envelopes.
But that it was very important. I mean that if you're registered somewhere else, you can't. I mean, even if it is 50-50 time. So.
And
there was 31 question ballots from Girdwood this election cycle, which is higher than we've seen in recent years. And as Barbara mentioned, there was a significant number from folks outside Girdwood.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
And then
Thank
one
you.
other thing that is kind of, I don't want to say unique, but let's say I go and vote in a precinct that is not my own precinct on election day, and I've moved. So I go vote in a precinct that's not my precinct, and I'm given that particular ballot card, let's say it's number 3, but yet I reside in a precinct that has ballot card 1, and now my residence, my registration, but yet I've moved and put a new address down. I really should be getting the ballot of the address that I'm at, So there have been some times where all 3 of those were all different, and unless they were the same, they're not, they
They
could
don't
not
get a
vote.
full-
They only
They
get
couldn't
the
get the full
area-wide.
count. They could
But
only
they
get area-wide.
I see
So
that.
sometimes
I
it got
see
pretty
the number-
complicated.
Yeah.
I see the number of distinct
Yeah.
areas.
So- So those are things that we checked, and that Amanda said earlier, were checked 2 and 3 times, to make sure that we've got that right.
Thank you.
So, Barbara.
I would like to ask for that. I hope, as you said, you're impressed with what these people are doing, but you can see why it takes us 10 days after the
Yes.
election. There have been probably 30, 20, 25 to 30 people working at City Hall, you know, checking these incredibly obscure details to make sure that these are correct. and
Every
that the
vote
ballot-
counts.
Yes.
Every vote
And some of our workers have been working 12-hour days.
And the other thing I'd like to say is that the election commission actually should have 7 members. We are at 4 right now, and we really would appreciate if someone, if you could pass the word that we
Yes.
need to have members to apply to the election commission, because it certainly would have been easier if there were more of us as well, but,
And there's supposed to be 8, isn't there?
no, 7.
With
Seven.
an alternate.
Oh, 8? Okay,
Yeah.
7 and then an alternate, okay. So we definitely are in need of people to apply to be on the election commission, so if you know of anyone, I know Girdwood's a little ways away.
It's a little ways away, but
But-
there's some interest in elections now.
Okay, so pass the word, and
Strike while the iron is hot.
all the appointments are made in October, if I'm correct, usually by the mayor. So certainly, you know, have someone send a letter of interest to the mayor that they're interested to be on the commission.
One
Barbara?
of your biggest dilemmas, we have lots of people who are interested. You have to have worked at a precinct.
Yes, I'm sorry. You have to work as a precinct worker
At
at
a
one time.
municipal election.
At a municipal
Will that
election.
continue after we have vote by mail?
We will still have an election commission once we go to vote
Yes,
by
but
mail.
we won't be able to work in a precinct.
Oh,
That's
We
a
will
good
have to-
question.
That's a good,
We will
yeah,
have
that's a good
to.
point.
That is a very good
You
question.
might have been an election official
That's
at
why we
City
pay
Hall.
lawyers.
Yeah.
A very good question.
Vote by
Point.
mail elections still require election officials,
Yes.
a smaller number of them, so that might be where they're pulled from.
We'll
We'll have
look
to
at
address that.
Yeah. Any other public comment? Gene?
My name is Eugene Carlhaven. I'll be very, very brief. All I wish to say is to please note for the record that I was present for this meeting, and also note for the record that this is my 5th one that I started attending this particular meeting, particularly since 2012 election.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and I would like to say thank you to the public for coming. It's nice to have somebody they want to pay attention.
What was it?
Well, just to thank them for coming.
Yes,
I
yes.
think it's
Madam Chair, I move that we adjourn.
And the time is 6:28. Okay, we are adjourned.